Hi Ben, my name is Maria. I'm from Moskvе 24 channel. I would love to know, you were a director of this film, and I was wondering when the shooting ended up. How do you feel? Are you happy with the result? And what makes you feel you're good at it?
Well, yeah, making this film I felt very fortunate to be able to be working on this material, because I thought the script was really special, and it was very emotional, and it was very real. It was also funny too, and it didn't seem to fall into one category or another, or one genre or another. And when you work on something as a director, you put everything into it for a long period of time. It's almost like a marathon, that goes on for. This one's gone on for a couple of years, so you have to feel that passion for the project from the beginning, and by the time you get to the end, you feel as if you put everything into it. And in terms of feeling good about it, I feel as long as you realized in some way what you wanted to get up there, because it's never completely what you imagine. Sometimes things end up being different and better than what you thought. Sometimes you don't reach where you want to get to in certain scenes, but overall, I feel very happy with the film and proud of the creative collaboration that we had with all the people who worked on it, who worked really hard on it. And the same before, the best part is really when you can get that film out to the audience and have them connect with it and have their experience with it.
Здравствуйте, у меня два вопроса. Скажите, пожалуйста, в фильме было много сцен, где требовалось усилие. Вы использовали каскадеров? И второй вопрос. Кому вы в первую очередь посоветовали посмотреть этот фильм? Взрослым или детям? Спасибо.
Oh, well, I think, just to answer the second part, I think the movie's hopefully for adults and for younger people too. I mean, it's really a human story. I think, for me, I related to it on a personal level. Being my own age, but I know younger people have seen the movie and relate to it on another level that has to do with being, I think, a person in their generation who, for them, going out into the world and having an adventure or having a real experience is sometimes harder to do with all the social media and distractions of television, computers, video games. The actual idea of having a real experience is something that's a little bit novel to them. So that, I think, for a younger audience, the movie works on that level. And for people my age, I think you get to a certain point in your life where you realize that life doesn't go on forever, and you want to take chances and go for your dream on some level. So for me, that's kind of the movie. It's how I relate to the movie. I did a bunch of stunts. I did whatever I felt I could do. Every time you see Walter doing something in the movie, if it's skateboarding or jumping in the ocean, or it's usually a combination of stuntman and myself. Like when you see me doing it, it's me, but on the wider shot sometimes it's stuntman. But sometimes I would get Tom Cruise to do some stunts for me also. I mean, I think my connection with the story and with the character that Thurber wrote, I feel, even though the character that Thurber wrote was not a very quote-unquote successful person, you don't really know what he does. He's just kind of out there, running errands with his wife. But the thing that I connected with, I feel that people can connect with, is very universal ideas that we all go through our life, no matter who we are, how successful we are, with this idea in our heads of how we see ourselves that doesn't always translate out to the world. We all have dreams and imagine doing things that we haven't realized, and I feel that's a very relatable human thing everywhere. And for me, that's what I connected with the story, that there's all this potential inside of Walter that he hasn't realized. He had ideas of what he wanted to do when he was younger, and an idea maybe of how his life would go, and then he had to sort of got bogged down by real life responsibilities, which I think people can, everybody has to do that at some point. And that idea of, taking a chance and going out into the world and trying to do what you really wanted to do or dreamed about doing, for me, is the universal idea behind the movie.
Здравствуйте, Бен. Как мы все знаем, некоторые актеры больше придерживаются сценария, кто-то больше импровизирует на площадке. Скажите, пожалуйста, как вы любите работать, как у вас рождаются шутки, реплики?
Well, this movie, the script was written by Steve Conrad, and I feel like he has a very specific writing style and tone. And we worked on the script for about 8 or 9 months before we started to prep the movie. So there wasn't a lot of improvisation, though sometimes there was in some of the fantasy sequences with Kristen Wiig, who's a very funny comedian and is very good at improvising. But basically, we kind of were really going off the script most of the time. And I think when you're doing a comedy, you want to allow for improvisation, you want to allow yourself to have room to come up with something in the moment and have that energy. But it doesn't necessarily always have to be a new line. To me, it's just you're trying to find life and reality in the moment, and sometimes that comes out of just, sometimes trying something new, but it doesn't always have to be coming up with a whole new set of lines. Though, a lot of comedies these days, people do improvise a lot, and I've done movies where they've improvised a lot. And that can be great, but also if you have, if the script's worked out the way it should be, then, you can find humor within that too.
Скажите, Бен, вы являетесь и актером, и режиссером фильма. Насколько сложно это все совмещать? Спасибо.
It's a strange thing, acting and directing. The thing about directing is you spend a long time with the movie. You spend a long time preparing the movie, prepping it months and months before you shoot, and then you spend months and months after you finish shooting, editing and doing post-production. So really the only time where you're an actor and a director is when you're shooting the movie, which is that period in the middle, which is obviously it's a very important time, but and it goes on for a while. But you have that time when you're prepping to get ready. And so for me, I just do as much work in getting ready to get to the days of shooting, so that on the day of shooting I have enough of a plan that I know what I'm doing, that I can concentrate on being an actor as much as possible. But it's always confusing, and sometimes it's very inefficient because you have to run back and forth. Sometimes you can't be 2 places at once. And sometimes as an actor you get frustrated with yourself as a director. You wish you had another director who could actually direct you. Sometimes as a director you get a little frustrated and wish you had a better actor to work with. But that's, you end up relying on your fellow actors and crew members, and you figure out some sort of rhythm, and it becomes more of a collaborative process with everybody as you go along.
Доброе утро, Юсупов Александр. Прежде всего, «Зеландер» — это лучшая комедия 21 века. И вы сами сказали, что разработка фильма представляла себе марафон. И мне интересно, как на протяжении разработки менялся сценарий Стива Конрада, что пришлось вырежать по соображению бюджета или обычный процесс. Что осталось, что было в оригинальном сценарии и что не попало в добрую финальную картину. Спасибо.
That's a good question. It was a long process working on the script with Steve, because I felt he wrote a great script that had all these amazing ideas in it, but a lot of it was just trying to figure out how to hone the story and follow the story so that you could really follow the journey of this character. And a lot of things were harder to actually do in a movie, for real, budget-wise, that we couldn't afford. So we spent a lot of time trying different fantasies, and working on ways to tell the story that I felt were believable, so that you could follow Walter's journey and really believe that he could do all the things he does in the movie for real. And then we had a lot of back and forth on fantasies, because the fantasies, the sky was the limit with our imagination of what we could do, but then the budget would sort of always be this realistic thing we had to deal with. So we ended up cutting back the fantasies a lot when we were writing the script. When he was writing the script and I was working with him. And then as we started to shoot the movie, we ended up having to cut some scenes down also as we were shooting because of the budget, especially when we were in Iceland, because we ended up going over budget a little bit in New York, and then we needed to scale back in Iceland. And then I found in editing the movie that actually the fantasies were too long, and the audience really wanted to watch the story move forward. So it's actually good, I think, that we could scale back on the fantasies. And we tried to get as specific as we could with the fantasies and have them support this love story that's going on with the girl that that he really likes, that he can't really connect with. And so we learned a lot as we were developing the script and as we were shooting, and even as we were editing and going back and filming more after we edited to really try to focus the story in terms of those fantasies and the love story of Walter's growth as a person.
Я хотел бы добавить, если Бен не возражает. Во-первых, спасибо большое за лучшую комедию 21 века, но мы в Фоксе вместе с создателями картины позиционируем этот фильм гораздо что-то большее и гораздо более глубокое, чем комедия. Это выше жанра комедии. Это, наверное, больше все-таки приключения, романтическая история, история маленького человека, который на самом деле, любой маленький человек может быть сильным и великим. Недаром мы картину выпускаем на территории бывшего Советского Союза, за исключением некоторых стран, практически тем же масштабом и форматом, каким мы выпускаем самые крепкие, самые большие блокбастеры. Картина будет выходить на более чем 1600 экранов, это больше, чем 1000 кинотеатров или локаций. Мы делаем очень большую ставку на этот фильм и уверены, что это из новогодних картин, большого количества, которые будут показываться публике, это будет одна из лучших, одна из самых любимых картин.
Wow, no pressure.
Try and do the one.
Sounds good.
Hello, Ben. Hi, Metro International. So I got two parts of my questions.
Okay.
First of all, of course, do you want to do something extraordinary in your life, like Walter Mitty? And the second part is, we, our country, Russia, we got a very strong nature, North and Siberia, for example. Why didn't you shoot in Russia some of the scenes? And do you want to make something in future in Russia? Thank you.
Yeah, well, Russia is a very cinematic place for sure. I mean, just coming and just flying in here for the first time in the snow, and it's very dramatic, very beautiful. And there's a great history of Russia with the arts. For me, it's just even as an acting student, starting out in New York, reading Stanislavski and Boleslavsky, those are for us the acting teachers who really made such a huge difference in acting in the 20th century. So I feel a connection with that on that level, and I would love to come here and shoot something someday. It's just thinking about movies that have taken place here, and like as you say, the strong nature of people here and the struggle it can be, I imagine, over history to live here. So that'd be great. It'd be wonderful to do that someday. And in terms of imagination for me, and the things I've imagined doing in my life, for me, I always wanted to be a filmmaker and to be able to be making films, making a film on this scale and traveling the way we did with this one, and having the experiences we had was a dream come true for me, and I look forward to doing that more. And then just getting connected in ways to life, traveling and things that are outside of show business for me are interesting also. And especially as I have a guy with a couple of kids, wanting to travel with my kids and go different places with them and expose ourselves to different things in the world and different experiences. The first thing we did when we started to work on the movie was we got the research photos, and we went and looked at the original offices, and we actually shot in the Time Life building lobby in New York City on 6th Avenue, which is basically as it was when it was built and designed in the mid-50s. And that was really important in the movie for me, the sort of the architectural sort of graphic nature of those offices and that design from that period of time, especially as it related to the history of the original short story by James Thurber, which was in the New Yorker in 1939, and I thought there was sort of a lineage with the history of New York magazines and how Life magazine sort of related to that. And we took our cues in terms of the design of the movie from the pictures that we saw of those offices and tried to design the offices in a way that was inspired by that, maybe taking some liberties, but really that sort of graphic nature of those offices was the visual cue for us on how to sort of put Walter in this world that he existed in, that he needed to break out of. So there was a lot there that we took, and it was important for us to give the feeling in the movie that Walter was in a world that he needed to break out of, and I felt like that world sort of was there with that magazine, the way those offices looked.
Скажите, Скажите, пожалуйста, в фильме очень много фигурирует Шон Пенн. Каково было с ним вообще работать, даже на этих больших промежутках? Спасибо.
Well, I've always been a big fan of Sean's and one of my favorite actors. I think he's one of the best actors we have, or have had ever. And I felt he was really right for that role because he represents creative integrity.